Welcome back to the art of boat building. So as you can see, the strip planking of the deck is moving along pretty nicely now. What I thought I would do today, which may be a little bit of a short video, but I thought I'd show in real time what it took to put a strip on the boat. So the first thing, of course, what I need to do is to get all of these tape marks and clamps off in order to get the first strip on, or the next strip on. I wanted to show you these little clamps here. It's basically a spring clamp against the station mark and a piece of plywood with a notch cut out. Now I've got a whole bunch of different sizes and varieties of them in here. These were actually from my friend Joseph when he came out to help me get started planking the boat. So the way these work is it does two things. One, it'll push the plank down against the receiving plank here, and also it can pull down this way so it pulls the plank tightly against the form, and then simply taking one of these spring clamps to hold it in there like that. So what I do to get started for the next plank is I set it back about like so, because as I put that plank in there, I need to have it bend like so, and that will help it hold that while I'm able to temporarily move them all in. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, sometimes we lose our little pads there. So we get this set up like this so that I can get that in there. Now, I'm quickly approaching where the cockpit is, and you can see there's a little mark right here where the cockpit will be. And I think we're only about maybe, I don't know what it is, let's see, we've got not quite, well, a little less than 3.5 inches. So every 3 inches is 4 strips of wood. So basically, that's about basically 4, not quite, but 5 of them will take us right up to here. What I need to decide is that up here at this next form, this is where the cockpit is. So I need to decide at what point I'm going to start putting these planks in before I start putting the flat planks in. Now, if you remember, the deck will have a V-shaped planks that are flat sawn instead of quarter sawn like these planks here are. So that's what I'm going to do first, is I'm going to get all of these situated to receive that first plank. Now, this plank here came on, and I started at the aft end, and I moved up to the bow of the boat. So now this plank, I will start at the bow and go back so that those glue joints will be staggered. So I gather the next plank here, and I'm going to line it up a little bit here to kind of give me an idea of where it will start, and then just kind of measure it around like so. When I bring it on down around here, you can see I get pretty close to this station mark here. What I don't want to do is to be very close to that, otherwise it'll be a little hard to get clamps in there. So I'm going to shorten that up just a little bit. So I'm going to cut my 45 somewhere about there. Now you can see what's left then is going to be a very short piece here at the aft end. So the first thing I want to do is to come up here to the bow, and I want to cut off the end here where it meets the center stripe. I want to hold that temporarily, so I'll just stick a clamp on here. So up here at the front, I have, what I want to do is to line up this edge with the line of the existing plank like so. And I like to take a straight edge like this and sort of sight it down the center line on both ends, so it needs to be right about there. And that'll give me an approximate starting place to cut it off at. Take this down on my bench. I'll take my pole saw here, and I'm going to cut that right along that line. So one of the things in my line right here, I don't want to cut it blunt like this. I want to have a little bit of a taper on it like so. So we'll get that started. And if we're really lucky, that sometimes by cutting it like this, it fits. So now we'll test that out. That's a pretty good fit. Now there is a little bit of a gap here, right in here. So what's happening is, let me get my pencil to point with, that this tip isn't being allowed to get all the way up in here because of the glue that is right here. So I'm going to nip the end of it off a little bit and see if that makes it fit just a little better. Well, that fits much better. That's nice and tight now. Right, now that we have that piece fitted, now we need to just get some glue on there. Now I remember back here that it ended just a little bit shy of this last station, so I'll make a mark right there so I know how far to put the glue. And we'll start here. Now one of the things that I learned is that with this glue bottles is to pull with it and not push. The pushing, there's just enough little dirt and fibers in there in the cove of the plank that it will plug up your little piece of tape right there. Get that out of the way. We'll plug up your glue bottle. I'm trying not to be too generous, but generous enough that it doesn't actually drip out of the cove. Sometimes I go by with my finger and kind of smooth it out a little bit. For those of you that are wondering what kind of glue this is, it's Titebond 2. Now, why am I using Titebond 2? It doesn't really matter whether it's water resistant like Titebond 3 is, because it's going to be coated with fiberglass on both ends, both sides. So it'll be completely sealed up. Titebond 2 sets up a little faster than Titebond 1. Certainly doesn't really matter. You could use any one of the three glues. In fact, you don't even need to use the brand of Titebond. You can use whatever carpenter glue you like. So Titebond, the reason that I care about it setting up quicker is that in the case where I'm getting more than one row of planks on in a day, it's nice to know that it's already kind of set up so I can do one side and then move back and forth. Now I can only get so close to that corner, so now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the end of the plank and a little bit on the bottom side of the bevel there. All right, so to get started, I want to push this plank in where it belongs. And I'm going to take a clamp, one of these little 6-inch clamps. I'm going to take one of these pieces of plywood and put here, mainly so that I'm distributing the force of this clamp out. Make sure it gets in there good and solid, so I don't damage that cove any more than it needs to be damaged. Well, I guess it doesn't need to be damaged at all, but. So you can see I'm kind of pinching it to kind of get it to line up with that. And now it's a matter of kind of moving on down here and moving in far enough that I can then slide one of these little clamps over. Now I'm not worried about it all the way. Right now I'm just working to kind of get its curvature in here. As close as it can be to it. You can see why having these clamps kind of set up and ready to go is important. Oh, I forgot to cut the end of that off. Well, I can do it real quick here. Let's see, how am I going to do that? There we go. I'm just guesstimating that it's a 45 or something close to it. Okay, now I've got that in there, and now I can come through and push these in tighter, and I can see where I get a little glue squeeze out then. You can almost hear it pop into place. So when I get it in here, I kind of wiggle it a little bit so that that glue can kind of set in there. Okay, now I can come through and get more clamps on there. How do we turn out up here? Need to lift it up a little bit, it looks like. Put another clamp here. Well, I'm able to do this where it's the shear will allow me to. Oops. Obviously down here I can't put a clamp like that. So now I will come by with my tape, and you've seen me mention before that this tape is 3M tape and it's made for rough surfaces. So I tape it good on the bottom side and then give it a little tug. Not too much of a tug or you'll break the tape. Okay, coming along pretty good. Get good squeeze out of the glue, which is important. And I know that there's enough in there. Move the camera down so you can see down there. So you can see I'm getting some good squeeze out. I kind of pull on that, you can see I know that I've got that glued properly. Now this wants to turn a little bit like that. Here's where these little clamps, you can actually help hold it because it wanted to pop up this way. So now it's fared out and flush with the way it should be. All right, now I'm going to get a damp rag and wipe down this glue. Now, I'm not too worried about getting all of the glue off. I just don't want so much on there that when I go to ferret, I've got to sand through a lot of glue. This will clamp down tight. So as I'm going along, I'm checking a couple of things. One, I want the plank, the bottom side of the plank, to be laying flat on the form. And that's what I just did, was I adjusted this a little bit so that I can push down on that so that I know that it's up against that form properly, which means that it'll be following the curve that the boat is designed to have. Kind of check it every place I go past a station. What I need to address is right here where it's a little bit low from the center stripe. So you can see where it comes down. I know it's a little hard to see in the video. Maybe if I move down a little bit like this, you can see how it's sticking up right here. So what I want to do is to fix that. So the way I'm going to do it is I've got a little offcut of a plank here and a clamp. If I put that to bridge between the two, whoops, oh, that's not good. Get that back on there. That's missing a rubber pad, what the problem was. All right, now where did I put that little piece? Right here. I want to be over a little bit more, like that. Right now, nice and flush. So, now one of the other things that I wanted to show that I've been experimenting with is this Starbond CA glue, and it comes in different colors. So this is a medium, or it's dark brown. Now somewhere I have and here it is. This is a stain I'm going to use on the boat, and of course this is going to stay the natural light color like it is. So that's why I got this medium brown, which is pretty close to that color. Now what this does is that spot that is a little troublesome, and there's probably a tiny little gap in there. And so what I'm going to do, make sure my hand's not in the way, is put a little bit on there and activate it. More activator than I needed, but now you can see that will stay there even once that clamp has stopped doing its job. I want to put another clamp on here. You can see that this can move a little bit, so I want to clamp that in a little better. Wow, that's not good. And this one. interesting how it's just a little bit wider at this spot. There we go. Pull that in. There we go. All right. All right, so that's the main part of that plank. A little squeeze out there. So now what I need to do is go to the aft end and make a little short piece to go in there. So down here at the aft end, I've selected a little piece. It's long enough. It's a cutoff from the earlier planks, and it's pretty close to the color of this one. So the first thing I want to do is what I've done at the front, and that is to line this up and cut off that bevel on that end. I'm going to push this clamp over here just to hold this while I'm working on that. Lined up. Now I can cut that off with my pole saw. And again, I want to bevel it a little bit, so I'm tipping back like this. Now this method does not always work perfectly. As I had mentioned earlier in that first one, we got pretty lucky that it fit nicely. So we'll see how well we get it this time. That is pretty good, good enough in my book. Now what I want to do while that's in there is to mark this aft end here. So it comes in like that. And what I want to do is make a little mark where the beginning of this, the outside of that bevel that I cut on the other plank. So I want to line that up there. So now this needs to be cut that way. I had forgot to do on that first one was to put the end on it like this. So you can see that little pencil mark there. So what I'm going to do is line that up. You see which way it needs to be cut. So it needs to be cut beveled back that way. So I line that up with that, with this hole here, with that miter mark. Come up and then cut that off there. I'll test it. That is definitely better. Now I'm just going to put this, I'm going to dry fit this. So put this end in, and just need to get that down in there and pull it in, and it fits quite nicely. So now we can get some glue on that, if I can get it out. Remember, I'm pulling the glue in there. And then the same thing with this. Whoops, that's not it. Where'd it go? It's right here. It's always good to have your clamps ready for you. I am not doing a very good job right now of. If you have enough clamps laying around, you'll find one, I suppose. If I can get this on there or not. Let's see if I can get down far enough. Nope, I cannot. I think I'll be able to do it just with tape. If I can get my fingers in there, this center beam is not going to help me out much. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll hold it. I want to address this little spot right here. And I'm going to look for, there it is. So I've got a piece of plank here that I've taped so that I can put that on here and then clamp it so that it's nice and even. And one more. We can steal it from this side. Okay. Of course, this is on here like that. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing I did up front with a little CA glue here. I'm going to put a couple of kind of tacking dots first. And fill it in. Good. So now, of course, once it's sanded, it'll just be a little tiny black, or I should say dark brown line in there. I then moved over to the port side and installed the long strip and then added the small one. So I just finished getting the long strip here on the port side, and what I need to do now is to put this little short piece here. But one of the things I wanted to point out is what's happening right here where these pieces are coming together. What I've got is this spot right here where these are meeting, and what was happening is down farther down here, they were not meeting in the same spot. So for example, if I fix on the end of the piece here and I were to draw a line straight across, then you can see that it is at least a quarter of an inch longer on this side than on this side. So once I put this next strip in there, I want to try to slowly make those come up so that they're even, so that when I start putting the other planks on there, they will meet, so it won't be off kilter like that, so it'll meet. So I'm going to get this end cut off first, like I've done, and then I'll show you how I'm going to fix that. So I've got this piece all dry fitted in now, and if I take my straight edge here and I go straight across where it meets here, that's where it should meet. So you can see it's nearly a half an inch off. So I'm not going to try to gain all of that all at one time. I did actually do it a little bit on this one also. So what I'm going to do is here on the cove side, I'm going to try to shorten it by about a quarter of an inch or so, like that. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to kind of come up with a general idea here about how much I need to plane down, and then we'll put that in there and see where we're at with it. So you can see where I need to trim this off, and what I'm going to do is take my little plane and I'm going to start on the end and then start working down. So I'm going to plane it down to that line. You notice I started up here, and then now I'll slowly eventually get the strokes longer. And since I know that's curved, I'm not worried about getting all the way down to that line, because it's okay if it has a little curve to it. Okay, now that I've got it pretty close to where I want it, what I'm going to do is now go and put a little bead on there. Now you can see I've got a little bead just like I would on the rest of it. So now we'll see how it fits. So it's all well and good. It fits nicely up there, but look at the gap I have here. It's surprising that it shortened it that much. So what I should have done is not cut this until I had that taper put on there. As you can see, the taper worked really well. Here's my little line, and it comes pretty close to those two spots. So I need to make a new piece. And now that I've got this new one made, put a little tick mark right here so I know where to cut that off at. Right there. Let's see how that fits. We'll give it another dry fit here. Well, that is much, much better. Looks good. I get some glue on there. I didn't put a plywood pad on this clamp as it took very little force to pull it into place, so I knew it wouldn't damage that strip. Well, that has that lined up much better. So you can see I've planked up several more planks since the first one that I just showed. Now I have met where the cockpit is right here, and right here I'm about 1.25 inches away from it. Now I have 20 strips of the flat sawn planks, so 20 strips, that means I can have 10 on each side, and 10 strips is about 7.5 inches. So if I come up, so 7.5 inches is about right here. So if I add probably 2 more strips to each side, then I'll be in good shape as far as the number of planks I need. The same thing will be true here. If I come down 7.5, it'll be right here. Now the cockpit starts here, but some of these planks will run on back some of the quarter sawn planks. So I know I promised a short video this week. It turned out to be a long video. It's surprising what happens when you don't edit out all of the little mistakes and dropping clamps and what have you. Anyway, I hope that you found it useful. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time on The Art of Boat Building.